All right, welcome to the webinar. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us. We're just gonna wait a few minutes as everyone trickles in. And we'll get started shortly. Gavin, I think my screen is sharing. Can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, great, awesome. Welcome, we are excited to have you here. Welcome to our webinar, the Attribution webinar series. We are going to be diving into a topic that we're very passionate about here at Full Circle. So we're excited to jump in and discuss with you all. So grab whatever you need. We'll wait just maybe one more minute and then we'll dive into the webinar so we can jump into the topics itself. If you have any questions too throughout this webinar, please feel free to jump in the chat, add your questions, comments, all is welcome. So think of it as an open discussion, and we will have a live Q&A after we walk through the material here. So yes, any feedback, any information, questions is absolutely welcome. Okay. All right, with that, we will start the webinar. So thank you everyone for joining. We're very excited to have you here. My name is Brianna. I am the director here at Full Circle Insights. I am accompanied by Gavin Griffiths. Some of you are customers, some of you are new here, so welcome. We're both excited that you're here, and we're going to talk about something, again, that we're very passionate here. That is marketing attribution. So how to grow your pipeline with digital attribution. We'll dive into the webinar itself. Okay, so here's a quick agenda for us. We're going to walk through some introductions. Again, some of you may be familiar with us from our previous webinars. If you are new, we'll give you a quick introduction to both myself and Gavin so that you know who we are. And then we're going to dive into an overarching viewpoint of what is marketing attribution. So some of you might be very familiar with this and some might not be. So we're just going to start with the basics. What is marketing attribution? Why is it important for us as marketers? Then we'll dive into some of those common pitfalls that us as marketers experience when it comes to marketing attribution. So you can earmark this. We'll also have some solutions in the webinar itself. So you hopefully will be able to take these away with you with your take these away with you after the webinar. Then we'll dive into how do we leverage attribution for pipeline growth? So how do we as marketers shift from becoming a lead-focused marketer, someone who's focused on filling the top of the funnel with quality leads, and move into a revenue-driven marketer? And so attribution is a key aspect of that for us here at Full Circle, and also just in general. So we'll dive into that point as well. We do have some topics around funnel metrics. So we're going to walk through some key funnel metrics that you can keep an eye on as you are starting to measure your success against your KPIs. We can't talk about campaign attribution without funnel metrics. They go hand in hand here. So we do have a slide on that. Again, take what you like from this webinar. Hopefully it's helpful for you. We'll also talk about some key aspects of aligning with your sales team. So this is a huge topic for us here at Full Circle, and also just as marketers, how do we align with the sales team, specifically with attribution? So we have a couple of meeting suggestions that we use here at Full Circle. We're going to offer to you, take what you like, leave the rest. We also have a couple different reports and dashboards that you can look at with your sales team that we recommend. And you take this information, take it to your sales team, take it to your leadership team, move forward. And then we also have some best practices too. So overall, how can you convey marketing's impact? This will be a roll-up of what we discussed in the webinar itself. And of course, live, we'll have some questions. So any questions that you have, drop them in the chat, and then we'll get to them at the end of the webinar here. Okay, so here is a quick introduction. So welcome. My name is Brianna Perkins. Like you said, I'm the marketing director here at Full Circle. Grateful to be here with you all, and I am accompanied by Gavin Griffiths. So if you've attended some of our webinars previously, you may be familiar with Gavin. You may work with Gavin as one of our customers. Gavin has so much information when it comes to marketing attribution, and he is just a huge player for us at Full Circle. He has a decade of experience in digital marketing, business intelligence, and marketing analytics. So thrilled to have him here. Again, throw your questions in the chat if you have any here, because he is an expert here. So Gavin, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so that's us, but let's dive into the important stuff here. So let's dive into the meat of the webinar. Okay, so understanding marketing attribution. So again, we're going to walk through some key points. Some of you may be very familiar, some may be not as familiar. So let's dive into that here. Okay, so understanding marketing attribution as a whole, one, it helps us again become a revenue-driven marketer. So there are two key aspects of it. Marketing attribution allows us to, one, make data decision marketing optimizations, right? So again, instead of focusing on being a lead, generating leads for the top of the funnel, we are now using marketing attribution as a tool to help us iterate and optimize so that we can see what's working and what's not, cut those campaigns that aren't driving greater impact throughout the funnel and optimize accordingly. Converse also, that will improve our marketing performance, right? So if we are focused on campaign attribution, ultimately as a whole, it'll help us in those facets. Gavin, any other thoughts on marketing attribution with your conversations with customers, or just as a whole? Why is this important? Why should we as marketers be focused on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the variety of marketing operations professionals and marketing leadership professionals I work with on a regular basis, data is everything. And where we really shine in here is being able to provide actionable data that's going to allow marketers to have to make better and more informed decisions about their marketing on leveraging things. So at the end of the day, the focus is around generating as much new business as possible, but doing so in a meaningful way by leveraging their data to say, okay, we know what's working well. This is where we need to make improvements. This is where we can expand our efforts and ultimately drive more pipeline. And so, with data being the bread and butter of any kind of well-informed marketer, this is where we really step up and provide that in-depth insight for them to be able to dig in and identify and ultimately make well-informed decisions about the marketing operations.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gavin. And moving forward, so let's talk about some of the influence types. So we have 3 listed here. There's actually a 4th that Gavin, I think, will have you touch upon too. But here as an overall view, different attribution influence types. So one, we have first touch, last touch, and multi-touch. That first touch, again, gives credit to that first interaction that a customer may have within their journey itself. Last touch does the opposite in a sense, right? It gives that credit to the last touch point before the conversion happens for the customer. And then multi-touch distributes that credit evenly across multiple touch points, all the touch points within the customer journey. And then there's one other actually influence type that's not listed here, the tipping point. Gavin, did you want to talk about the tipping point, and also feel free to touch upon any of these as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So tipping point is also a very, very important attribution influence point. And what it is basically the key of identifying specifically when leader contact is enter into an active funnel. So that way we can identify effectively, what was the driving force, or where are we giving credit to that tipping point that allowed someone to enter into our pipeline and begin tracking them. And so kind of looking at other things on there listed on this page here, such as first touch. So what's really awesome about this is first touch is historically just been known as like, what was the first thing that brought this person, or where do we give credit to the inception of this leader contacts journey. But in today's age, where you're constantly marketing to people and things are changing and going in and out of pipeline, first touch might not necessarily mean something. Where someone engaged with a marketing campaign from 2 years ago, it could say, hey, realistically our pipeline is only 180 days or 6 months from there, and we don't want to consider that first touch from there. So we can provide that ability and that insight to be able to flex that first touch and say, hey, we really only want to consider first touch campaigns is eligible within like so many days of opportunity creation, and looking at that, or digging into last touch for this. is especially important. If you have depending on your marketing strategy on where you're pushing things to try and get things over the threshold and create that opportunity and drive them to a more advanced stage of your pipeline. Last touch can be really key and instrumental to identifying that customer journey. And so let's say you're focusing a lot on that tipping point campaign of what got them into that pipeline in the first place, but you may be running additional retargeting campaigns to keep that person engaged with your content or continue to get engagement through sales. And then last touch point allows you to identify what was the key indication of where we push someone into the opportunity stage of the pipeline. And then of course, multi-touch. So companies and marketing teams use a variety of marketing tactics and strategies for this. So depending on where your focus is, the multi-touch is a very flexible model that allows you to identify very specific key areas of where things are at in the funnel and like where things are being influenced at certain stages to help build out and identify that customer journey to make meaningful decisions around, okay, we understand where our first touch, last touch, and tipping point are, but what does our engagement look like post opportunity creation? Mm-hmm. Or maybe, for instance, you have an example where your sales reps are not necessarily adding a lot of contact roles to the opportunity for that, and you have more of an account-based marketing strategy. Multi-touch allows you to get a distribution and identify what are those influential touch points across all the contexts at the account level within Salesforce. So there's a lot to look at within this, but yeah. So
absolutely. Thank you, Gavin, so much. And if anyone is, kind of at this place of looking at the different influence types or looking at the attribution model types and needing additional support here, we do have a cheat sheet. So I'll go ahead and send that in the follow-up for this webinar. You'll receive a recording of the webinar, but I'll also throw in our attribution model cheat sheet too. It gives an overview of the different types. So that you have that in your back pocket if it's helpful at all. So we'll go ahead and send that over as well. Okay, so moving on. So that's our overview of campaign attribution. Let's talk about some of the common pitfalls that we experience as marketers. Maybe you're walking through some of these challenges as well. And then we can walk through, we'll have additional resources too. And how do you navigate some of these things? So here are some top challenges that we see when it comes to campaign attribution. Definitely interested to hear, Gavin, your insight on this too. Gavin, as he works with a lot of our customers on this as well. So some of the challenges here, one, just what we talked about, right? There are varying attribution models, different attribution influence types. There's a lot to consider when it comes to campaign attribution. So it could be complex in even looking at where do I start? And if you don't have a key understanding of the KPIs and the goals of the business at large, but also how this affects marketing and what KPIs you're driving to or what you're driving towards so that you can hit those larger goals, then this can be daunting. This can be daunting, yes. And so similarly, having an understanding of your customer journeys, some customer journeys are very complex. And so considering what specific attribution model can help us with those customer journeys could be a challenge, a hurdle for us to hop over. Data quality and consistency also goes pretty hand in hand with integrating with your marketing automation and CRM. So making sure that you have that data quality and consistency will ultimately influence your campaign attribution as well. Points 4 and 5, attribution model selection bias and management buy-in, really lean into that cohesiveness that is needed on your team. So making sure that your team is aligned, again, that you are driving towards KPIs, you are aware as a marketer of what your impacts have on the larger impacts for the business. So Gavin, curious to hear your thoughts on these points and anything stick out just in your conversation with customers. Curious to hear your thoughts.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. So yeah, like identifying a lot of common challenges that we address with the Full Circle platform, starting with varying attribution models. So where we really shine on here is making up for areas where there may be pitfalls within operations where certain rules are not hard coded into the system to ensure that processes are being followed. So you need a variety of attribution models to be able to identify and see things. So for instance, like I mentioned earlier, like if you have a sales team that maybe doesn't necessarily add a lot of contact roles to an opportunity, or you're running an account-based marketing strategy where you're targeting across all of the contacts on the account, you need those variant attribution models to be able to get those insights, or maybe build something very, very specific around your marketing strategy where you may have like really heavy pipeline drives that are pre-opportunity focused, or you might have stuff that's once opportunity creation has occurred, want to identify attribution across, like, what are we doing after a post opportunity to keep these people engaged and continue pushing them through the pipeline to get us to close one opportunity. Complex customer journeys. There's so much on this. It's very, very important to take into consideration. So looking at things like cohort reporting to identify exactly like what are our touch points look like leading up to opportunity close one or close loss, and seeing what is the impact of this, like where are we seeing the highest level engagement that's leading to success within our pipeline. Or maybe you're looking at an even deeper level, digging into the engagement of your website. So you're pulling in campaign members or campaign engagements from your marketing automation and putting those into Salesforce, but that doesn't always account for how people are engaging with the website. And so you may want to have a deeper view where our platform fills in on that to be able to effectively look and see how are people engaging with your website when they're not generating conversions, when they're not generating form submissions. So that way you can have an earnest and open conversation that's data driven and informed around where you might need to make UX updates or decisions around, so you can streamline that process on there. Data quality, of course, our third point. This is every marketer's bread and butter is data quality and consistency. And so a big part of the Full Circle platform is enforcing processes in place, so that way certain guidelines are followed to create consistency within your data, but it's also made to be flexible, so that way it's accommodating to the rest of your tech stack and not interrupting. The most important thing is not interrupting sales processes and running in the background, but at the same time, making sure that we're matching things together appropriately, so that way at the end of the day, marketing and sales have good quality data to work together as a single source of truth to make those decisions and make improvements. And of course, attribution, selection bias, talking all about sales and marketing, working off a single source of truth. There's certain areas within any kind of process where marketing is working towards driving good quality leads into the pipeline, and then sales is taking those from there. And you might want to say, okay, sales might want to say, hey, we really want to identify where sales is stepping in and what their involvement is in that process. And so you don't want to have that attribution model bias that just says, hey, look, marketing's doing all the work. And you don't want to have one that says, hey, sales is doing all the work. You need that healthy balance on there to identify within that process and be able to see, where are these two things coming together, and where, who's doing what, where, and when, so you can always keep improving and drive more pipeline. And of course, moving into management buy-in. At the end of the day, management needs to be well informed to be able to make data-driven decisions around, where we're pushing the company for sales drives, and to know what's working, what's not working. And with this Full Circle platform and way we integrate in there, it's all about making sure that we're able to provide actionable data that's clean, clear, and consistent, and concise in a way that's going to be meaningful, so that at a top level, management can immediately look at this and start making decisions and identify key indication points on where they are going, where they've been going, and what they need to do to continue to drive and drive revenue. And then, of course, lastly is integration of marketing and automation CRM. So there's instances in a lot of cases with a lot of marketing automation platforms where there's data loss because things are being overwritten on the lead on the contact record. And so it's having that historical data is instrumental to future success, because we want to be able to make sure that we're telling that story telling that data-driven story about that customer journey, and having that historical record, so that way you have reliable data to be able to make decisions and say, okay, based off these engagements and everything that's coming together from our marketing automation platform or other pieces of our tech stack, where based on all of these engagements, where do these all fit together in a way that's going to tell that meaningful story? So that's where we really fill in a lot of these challenges and help make this as easy as possible for marketing and sales to work together.
Thank you, Gavin. Yeah, thanks for your insight there. And I think you segued great into our next topic. So we have these challenges. Where do we go from here? So let's dive into how do we leverage attribution specifically for pipeline growth? So here is the meat of the webinar. We want to focus in on two key questions here as a marketer so that we're shifting again from being a marketer that's focused on driving leads at the top of the funnel, but into a marketer that's revenue driven. So as a first question, in terms of evaluating my success or our success, how well are my campaigns influencing new business? So that's question number one. Question number two, how much revenue are my campaigns generating? So these are two core questions. And within each of these questions, we can dive into different resources, metrics to consider. We'll talk about some funnel metrics in a few slides down, but also some things to consider as a marketer moving forward. Again, take what you like, leave the rest here. So first question, how well are my campaigns driving new business? So in terms of attribution, there are many facets that you can look at. Here are some that we recommend too. So looking at your top campaigns by attribution, specifically around revenue won, and then also conversely looking at revenue lost. So being able to take a bird's eye view and take a pulse at any point, a snapshot of what campaigns are actually driving in terms of revenue won, that's huge for us, right? Again, shifting into a revenue focused marketer. And then also looking at attribution by campaign type. So looking at just what Gavin was talking about earlier, right? Where our attribution by campaign type. So is this generated from digital marketing, the sales team, webinars? Gavin, I know you have a lot to say about this slide. So specifically on touch timing, as we talked, but we did not talk about this yet. So I'll let you, Gavin, dive into touch timing and anything else on this first question here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so kind of digging in a little bit deeper beyond looking at ultimately what are our top performing campaigns for attribution, or what does our attribution spread look like across influence revenue by campaign type. We also want to have a really good and firm understanding around our touch timing. And most commonly, I hear marketers refer to this as cohort reporting. So looking at and what you can see in this bottom right component there is effectively broken out into 30-day cohorts leading up to opportunity close one. So what we're seeing here is effectively like what across all of our close one opportunities, what that journey has looked like and how it ties back to our campaigns categorized by campaign type. And this can be segmented into a variety of different things within your Salesforce org for different data points. So if you wanted to break it down by like touch points as it associates to things like geography or opportunity type or deal or anything like that. But this allows you to really dig in and identify and see, okay, based on this, we're seeing a substantial amount of touch points coming in from digital marketing. 60 from 90 to 0 days out from opportunity close, so we can make a safe assessment based on these engagement touch points. That's where we're seeing the most leading up at the end, so where we can make have the most impact around a pipeline. But like looking back towards further out from opportunity day close, we can identify, okay, we're seeing a lot of engagement from the sales team there on bringing in new leads. And so this is a good healthy mix of identifying, along with that process and what that journey view looks like, to be able to say, okay, hey, we're noticing that sales is doing a great job bringing us in leads in here. And then it looks like towards the end that our marketing team is continue to remarket to these people and push them over the threshold to get us to close one opportunity. So being able to really break this out and identify what that customer journey looks like in a variety of different ways is a great way to make really good informed decisions around that process and plan out future marketing strategies.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gavin. All right. Okay. So we covered question number one. Let's dive into question number two. So how much revenue are my campaigns generating? So having a bird's eye view too of the revenue that your campaigns are generating, we can dive into different aspects of this as a whole. Looking at that is crucial for us as marketers. Also looking at this broken out from your digital versus non-digital campaigns. So not discarding your non-digital efforts in terms of marketing, but looking at this cohesively together. You can also look at digital advertising revenue and attribution. So Many of us work with agencies. If you do work with an advertising agency, this is also something that you can communicate with them as well. A lot of times our agencies only see information as to how we're actually filling that top of the funnel. And when we have accurate campaign attribution and we can assess and then also convey that information to our agencies, we can help create a good relationship there and ultimately help drive our overarching goals and pull down some of those quality leads throughout the funnel. So again, I think Gavin will have definitely some ideas around this as well. But also you can look at this revenue attribution specifically grouped by medium as well. Again, another source that is helpful as you connect with your overarching goals and also with your ad agency. Looking at overarching revenue attributed by campaign, both digital and non-digital, is also helpful as well. So Gavin, any thoughts or comments that might be helpful for someone who's our members here who are viewing the webinar right now? Any thoughts here?
Yeah, thank you. So a lot of what we've covered so far has really been focused on the funnel metrics piece and identifying touch points as it relates to filling pipeline and identifying that progress as it pushes down the pipeline to ultimately to your close won opportunities. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to hold accountable, what is the impact of these campaigns as it relates to close won revenue or close loss revenue. And so for our attribution models, depending on what your marketing strategy is and how you have that set up, this allows you to take a deeper dive into your campaign attribution and identify really what's influencing revenue. Like at the end of the day, if you're spending $100,000 on a paid search campaign, we want to be able to see, okay, hey, what's our return on this? Like how much revenue is truly being influenced as a direct result of those marketing efforts. And so what we've seen so far a lot of is around Salesforce campaigns and how they relate to that campaign engagement, to your leads and contacts, all the way through opportunity creation, close won or close lost. But within here, this is leveraging our digital source tracker platform that as it integrates in with attribution and funnel metrics to be able to go in and say, okay, we can see here, we're putting money into our Google AdWords campaigns, and we're putting money into targeted email efforts. And then based off the total number of opportunities associated within this time frame, what is the direct impact of those marketing efforts? Or looking down kind of in the bottom middle there, the organic digital revenue attribution. You may have hired hired out your agency to do some work on search engine optimization, so you have better organic ranking for this. So this allows you to also tie back and say, okay, hey, it's great we're able to see what our paid efforts are, but what is our market? What is our attribution look like as a result of effort put into search engine optimization and getting better organic rankings and just driving and having traffic come to our site organically through Google or Bing or whatever search engine that they came to the site on, and be able to identify, okay, based on the total number of opportunities, what is our impact on revenue there? Mm-hmm. And then getting that distinction up in the top, you can see these two different attribution models where you have a breakdown of how much revenue is associated with like digital touch campaigns versus non-digital touch campaigns. So digital touch would be associated with anything that's coming in from an online source. So organic traffic, paid search, email, LinkedIn, all those paid advertising efforts. But also, not all your campaigns are a result of digital. So you're going to have sales doing outreach on their own. They may be digging around on LinkedIn and then finding people to outreach and then creating leads and contacts. Those are sales associated campaigns. So you have the ability to identify and break out exactly how much revenue can be attributed directly to sales as a result of their efforts. Or you're running, maybe doing trade shows or holiday gift basket programs, whatever it is. But this allows you to really get in all the way down into the weeds and identify down to like the UTM parameter level, or as high up as a Salesforce campaign, or break that in between your different funnels, in between like marketing and sales efforts.
Mm, absolutely. Thank you, Gavin. Okay. All right. Moving right along. So let's talk about some funnel metrics for pipeline growth. So again, we're going to talk about funnel metrics here. We can't talk about campaign attribution without funnel metrics. So we're going to highlight some funnel metrics in terms of volume, velocity, and conversion metrics that you can make sure that you're measuring to help you identify those strengths within your marketing process, optimize accordingly and move forward. So the first would be a volumetric number of inquiries, leads. We may be familiar with this. And then in terms of a conversion percentage or conversion rate, that lead to MQL or marketing qualified lead conversion would be crucial for us to keep a pulse on as marketers, as well as that overarching number of your marketing qualified leads or MQLs, and then also the MQL to sales qualified opportunity conversion. Number of demo requests also is a metric to keep a pulse on, and that MQL to 1 conversion is something that definitely is crucial for us as we navigate through how are our initial prospects, initial inquiries moving throughout the funnel. Gavin, I know that also velocity is crucial when it comes to measurement. Any thoughts on velocity metrics here, or any of these metrics that we discussed?
Yeah, absolutely. So with our funnel metrics, at the end of the day, it's always great to be able to have clear, concise attribution to identify exactly, how many MQLs are being generated and what campaigns are responsible for driving those MQLs. But we also need to be able to make future projections around filling pipeline based around revenue goals and identifying how long it's going to take for us to get there based off based on how long it takes to get things through pipeline. And so where we fill in for that is identifying those conversion rate metrics within our platform, so that way you can identify exactly, from a certain campaign and say, hey, we generate 500 MQLs, and of those, 250 converted to SAL, and then another 125 converted to opportunity creation. So you're going to be able to get a breakdown of what those conversion rates are on average across your campaigns. So in future marketing efforts, you can say, okay, hey, if we run this campaign, what can we expect what can we expect as a result of these efforts, and quantify that to be able to say, okay, hey, if we run this campaign type based off previous campaign data, what are we looking at on being able to hit these revenue goals, or what can we expect for pipeline fulfillment? And then velocity really ties into that, because at the end of the day, you need to also identify how long it's what kind of time frame are you looking at. So in some cases, you might have a really short pipeline, and within 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, and that's fantastic. And so within here, you can, because we capture not only the volume of records and what records are responsible for generating things in that pipeline, but when they're happening. So that way, when you dig back into this, you can go ahead and say, okay, we noticed that our average MQL to close 1 conversion rate is 5%. And we can quantify and identify how much we can expect to fill in our pipeline based off of that kind of marketing campaign effort. But we also need to identify, hey, based on pipeline, or velocity, how long is it taking us to fill that pipeline in there? And so when we identify exactly when we're reaching those stages, this allows us to be able to very quickly break down and identify, okay, hey, we noticed that our average time for deal is 5 days in between inquiry to, or MQL to sales accepted lead, but it might be 30 or 40 days to go from sales accepted lead to close 1 opportunity. So with that velocity metric, it allows you to easily break down and quantify your pipeline to be able to make accurate projections around your marketing campaign efforts, so that way you can make future projections and have better planning.
Absolutely. Speaking of planning, okay, so let's dive into a great segue again. So the planning dashboard. So ultimately, right, when you, Gavin, I know you have a lot of thoughts around this too, but here's how you can use the planning dashboard specifically to calculate your marketing plan, just as an overarching view here. So let's say you have a goal of 10 million. Basically, you can utilize this to identify the total number of MQLs. And I know, Gavin, you've got a lot to say on this, so I'll transition it over to you.
Yeah. So kind of like what I was talking about earlier about leveraging those conversion rates and velocity rates. So this is where that data fills in that gap. So like, let's say, for instance, your chief marketing officer reaches out and says, hey, we've been tasked with a $10 million revenue goal, and I need to have accurate projections to be able to say how many MQLs we need to generate, so we can look back across our campaigns and identify where we need to ramp up efforts in order to reach those MQL goals, so we can ultimately hit a revenue goal of $10 million. So in this instance, you would look at the data generated by the Full Circle platform and go, okay, we know our revenue goal is $10 million. Looking at the opportunity association tied to this, we can say our average deal size is around 55,000. So that's a quick simple division there of $10 million divided by 55,000, which is 182 close won opportunities. And then going back to the conversion rates, because we're identifying the volume of records that are entering the pipeline and watching that progression through, we know exactly what your conversion rate is going from marketing qualified lead to close won opportunity. So in this instance, it's 4.6%. So we effectively just divide that number of wins that are needed by our historical MQL to close one conversion rate, and that will provide us the number of MQLs. And then where you tie that back into the velocity is looking at pipeline based on the number of days. You can say, okay, hey, in order to reach this goal of revenue goal of $10 million, we need to generate 3,957 MQLs. And then looking at our pipeline and looking at historically on how our campaigns perform, we can identify exactly what marketing efforts need to be run in order to hit that MQL volume to be able to reach that revenue goal within a certain time period.
Right. That's great. Exactly. And then also, thank you, Gavin, for that. I would just piggyback off and say, we take this information, we have our goals, right? We know as a marketer, our marketing team needs to generate, 3,957 MQLs. And then we can take that information, look at specifically campaign attribution, what campaigns are attributing to our MQL count. And also then we can take that information and discuss with our ad agency as well, start to optimize and really become, our ad agency is an extension of our team, right? So really work together cohesively within the planning aspects and also optimize so that we can continue to drive towards those goals. Okay, so this is a quick snapshot again. So you have the set goal as a marketer. How can you measure? This is something that we look at month over month. How are we progressing in terms of our goals for MQLs and also some of those conversion funnel metrics that we mentioned earlier. Okay, and so let's talk about how do we align with the sales team and how do we align in general when it comes to campaign attribution. So there are 2 points that we'll dive into here. One is just the alignment in terms of communication. So these are specific meetings that can help with that alignment. And then we're also going to talk about some different touch points, dashboards, and metrics that you guys can align with as well in the next slide. So ultimately, communication is everything, right? Being connected with the sales team and also with larger teams as a whole is huge when it comes to being successful as a marketer. So making sure that we're aligned with the sales team from the get-go and also as we optimize and as we grow is essential. So here are 4 different meetings that can make this possible. One is a pipeline development meeting. So this is a meeting likely between, your marketing team and also your SDRs, your sales team. This is focused specifically around your demand generation initiatives. A revenue council meeting. So this is something that you can meet with the sales team and review. We have full circle reports here because that's how we do it, but review your reports and the overarching impact on those KPIs. Meeting regularly for an operations meeting so that you can give updates to the larger team on your priority marketing projects and those results against your larger KPIs as well. And then really working in lockstep with your SDRs. So our SDRs are our teammates, our friends, right? They are here. We work connectively with them. So this meeting in particular can help us review those prospecting initiatives that they're working on and also the nurture campaigns that we are conversely working on, the content within both, making sure that we're aligned there and also any messaging updates within those campaigns. So these are 4 alignment meetings. We also have another cheat sheet. I'm just remembering now that if this is something that you're interested in exploring more, I'll also add that cheat sheet in the follow-up to the webinar as well. It's basically marketing and sales meeting alignment cheat sheet. So it gives these core concepts, but more different meeting opportunities, who's involved on these meetings, what should be the agenda of these meetings, right? What are the key concepts that you guys will focus on? So I'll go ahead and add that in the follow-up as well, just so you have it in your back pocket. Okay, and then in terms of alignment, we also want to focus on metric alignment. So Within the optimizing dashboard itself, you can work cohesively with your sales team to make sure that you are moving forward on your goals, right? And looking at things like MQL to SAL conversion rate can also help with that. Gavin, any initial thoughts here on the metric alignment, specifically these two dashboards, your own experience or customers' experiences? Very curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So a common occurrence I hear is and a hurdle for marketing and sales teams to overcome is make sure that they're both working on the same data set. I mean, it's always a tricky situation when you're presenting in front of leadership and marketing is showing numbers and saying like, hey, we generated this and this and this. And then sales comes back and goes, whoa, wait, we have totally different numbers. So the intent of this is to create a single source of truth. So effectively sales and marketing are working off of the same data set in a cohesive way. So that way, when it comes to making decisions at the very top, they can clearly delineate exactly like where things are happening, why they're happening, and how we're making improvements or doing whatever. And so where we tie a lot of this together, and the optimizing dashboard is a great example for this, is being able to really work together with sales and identify where things are coming together. So for instance, in the top left there in that example, you see like a really simple looking bar chart. And what that is an example of like one of our tracking measures we identify as worked and unworked MQLs. So within the system, not only are we tracking and monitoring MQL generation and how things are progressing through pipeline, but how long they've been sitting in pipeline. So for instance, marketing at the end of the day never wants to look back and go, hey, we, back in January, we sent you guys 500 MQLs, and there's still 150 of these that are still sitting in MQL that haven't been worked. We need to get these either advanced in the funnel or we need to disposition these out. And so this is where it gives really clear visibility to both the sales and marketing teams to say, hey, we're generating all these MQLs for you. We want to make sure that these are getting progressed through pipeline. So that way, A, your velocity metrics are being as optimized as possible and you have good, realistic quality data, but also too, that you're not leaving stuff in pipeline and forgetting about it. So for instance, like if a sales rep leaves the company and they have a whole bunch of MQLs on there, this is a really sure way to be able to identify and see, okay, how many unworked MQLs do we have in there? Are these associated with someone who's no longer with the company, or is John on vacation? And we've been assigning him MQLs that need to be progressed through. And so we can break that down by the individual sales reps. So that way sales leadership can monitor these and say, oh, hey, we have all this stuff that we need to make sure that we're getting pushed through pipeline effectively to make sure that to ensure the deals are coming in. But also too, this ties back a lot into getting feedback from the sales team. So at the end of the day, marketing wants that feedback to know that they're driving good quality leads to the sales team. So if for instance, marketing runs a campaign and they generate 1,000 MQLs and sales starts dispositioning these as disqualified, we carry over that disposition reason down to the campaign level. So that way marketing is getting that direct feedback from the sales team as it relates to their data quality. So there could be instances around, hey, we're seeing a lot of MQL dispositions around this specific campaign type, and we're noticing like the reason is we're getting a lot of registrations from students. And it's like, okay, hey, we need to adjust that. That tells marketing they need to adjust tactics on that campaign, or they may be getting a lot of stuff that's coming in from like existing customers or other kind of things like that. So it's a really good give and take system. So that way marketing's getting good quality data and feedback from sales as to the quality of their leads. And then sales is able to really clearly identify what they have in their pipeline and making sure that's getting worked and progressed. The other piece of this, we've talked a lot about, the boots on the ground marketing people that are running the campaigns and the sales people and leadership getting the information they need to make decisions. But the operations team also really heavily relies on this information here. So on the far right, we have that example for like MQL to SAL for what our volume to conversion rate averages are broken down by month. And so these are really good indicators to say, okay, hey, we're noticing at each stage in the funnel, we can see exactly like what the volume is and what the conversion rate is, but we may need to optimize processes here. So if you notice like, hey, we're seeing all of our sales reps are getting to, the stage of SQL, but they're immediately skipping to a more advanced stage in the funnel, and our velocity rate is dropping down to nothing. And we have this really high conversion rate, that may mean you have a redundancy within your system where you're looking at KPI metrics that really may not be important, and people are just bypassing them entirely. So that gives you ideas on where to shift. Or if you're noticing things are bottlenecking and you're seeing like a really high volume of things that are getting dispositioned out of a specific key part of the funnel, that could be an indication of process changes that need to occur of like, hey, are we making this too complicated? And potential customers are getting frustrated and they're falling down the funnel. Or maybe it means like, hey, marketing's kicking butt and we're generating a whole huge amount of volume, but sales just can't keep up with the volume. So do we need to ramp up sales in order to be able to handle the volume that's coming in there and prevent these bottlenecks, so that way we can continue to progress things through pipeline. So there's a mountain of data within this to be able to get here, but it's streamlined in a way so that way marketing and sales have actionable insights, but also operations is getting insights into how efficient their system and their processes are to be able to get things through pipeline as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gavin. Yeah, such great points in the open lines of communication across all facets there. All right. Okay. So just in looking at the time here, I want to make sure that we're on track. So looking at, okay, how do we show marketing's impact again? So hopefully this has been helpful for you in terms of some takeaways to show marketing's impact on pipeline growth. So one, as a marketer, making sure that we're keeping a pulse on those campaigns that are contributing to our overarching goals. Campaigns contributing to MQLs, close one. We're monitoring those key funnel metrics as well. As Gavin mentioned, that is a crucial aspect for us in terms of being a revenue-driven marketer, aligning with sales, and then ensuring as well that you have clean data tracking within your CRM. Gavin, anything else you would add to this, or any additional points here that people can take away?
No, I think this covers it really well.
Okay. All right. With that, we will shift into our Q&A. So thank you for answering, or rather, not answering. Thank you for adding your questions in here. If you do have any additional, feel free to drop them in the chat. So I'll walk through these questions. We have Thomas who asked a first question. Thank you, Thomas, for that. So let's see, Gavin, let's see if we can dive in. So number one, we are currently trying to establish a combination of tipping point and multi-touch within our organization. It's a bit of a challenge with both of our tech and lead funnel. So follow question to that would be, how would you suggest that the tipping point be utilized in determining ROI and attribution?
Yeah, so Great. I can speak to both of those. So the first part around, currently trying to establish a combination of tipping point and multi-touch within your org. I hear this in every single implementation I work with and every single customer that's leveraging our campaign attribution, and it's vital. And so we handle this in a couple of different ways. So with our campaign attribution models, they are designed to be custom built around your marketing strategy and identifying key performance indicators around the marketing. And the way we do that is by point weighting for this. So as things are progressing through pipeline, we are essentially we're tracking and tagging these key points. So like the tipping point campaign, when something reaches that, our platform tags that tipping point and catalogs it within the system. And then we also identify all of the other additional multi-touch attribution points. So kind of looking at the ways we do this, if you're looking at what we call an opportunity-based model, where we're only looking at the campaign touchpoint influence associated to the context on the account, that would be a way where we would say, hey, for this attribution model, for an opportunity base, what we want to do is we want to see what is the influence of our tipping point campaign and the other multi-touch touch points coming from the other context on this opportunity. And so what we would do is effectively we would assign a point value to what would be identified as the tipping point campaign, and then say, okay, for the other contacts on here, we want to associate and give credit to whoever's labeled as the decision maker for this opportunity, or whoever is in charge of finance, or whoever the primary contact is, and say, hey, for these specific contacts or contact roles, we want to assign a point value to them and say, and look at these. And then the way we break that up is we tie back to your pipeline and say, okay, for this attribution time period, we only want to consider these touch points for those contacts and for that tipping point campaign that fall within a certain time range of opportunity creation. So that way, when you run your attribution model, it's going to take the total opportunity amount and it's going to divide it by those touch point weightings that are assigned to the tipping point and the other contacts on the air, and then divide that across there. So at the end, you get a nice clean and clear report to say, okay, hey, our tipping point this tipping point campaign influenced this much revenue from this individual opportunity. And then the other touch points from these other contacts on there, based on the point weighting they got, they influenced this amount of that revenue from the opportunity. And then this can be broken out in aggregate across all the opportunities to say, okay, I want to see what are my tipping point campaigns associated with all these opportunities? What was their direct impact, and which one had the highest impact for this? And then say, okay, looking at the other contacts on the opportunity, what are those? Now, kind of going back to an operational standpoint, not all orgs, not all sales teams are super diligent about adding contact roles to opportunities. It happens, they set up an opportunity and they just continue to roll. And so you might want to say, okay, hey, we're heavily marketing at an account-based marketing model here to market to the contacts on this account. So we say, okay, we still want to give that tipping point credit to identify and give and see how much influence is associated to a tipping campaign. But we also go, hey, based on our pipeline, we were heavily marketing at the account level to the contacts on this account. What campaigns did they respond to? And we would assign point weighting to either all of the contacts on the account, or say, hey, I want to look at the first touch view, or I only want to look at touch points that fall within a certain time period of that opportunity creation to be able to look at that. Or you might want to look and see, okay, what are the touch points post opportunity creation, or a combination of both, before and after. So that's where we break. That's what we do, and we tag these. So this makes it really, really simple to do, and it's put into a UI interface. It's very, very easy to adjust and maintain and make real-time changes on there and see what those look like. And then Thomas, looking into your next question is like, how would I suggest tipping point be utilized to determine ROI and attribution? Great question. This comes up a ton. At the end of the day, you want to see, okay, hey, we're spending a bunch of money in our marketing. What's our return on investment? That again goes into where we're tagging these campaigns as they fall within that time period, and how they relate directly to how they relate directly to that. And since we pull in information from your campaigns and from your opportunities and from your leads and contacts, if you have cost information associated with that campaign and that information is in Salesforce, you can very easily combine that data and say, okay, hey, here's our influence revenue from our tipping campaign. Let's divide that by our campaign spend and see what our ROI was on this. So there's a ton of different ways to break it in. Again, it all comes down to your marketing strategy and identifying what are your KPI touch points that are most important to you based off your marketing strategy and where they fall within the velocity of your pipeline and pushing through deals. So Thomas, thank you so much for those questions. Those are absolutely fantastic. I hope I answered those for you.
Thank you, Gavin, for that. And thank you, Thomas, too, for your questions. Again, very helpful. Thomas says the tagging is what we're really looking into. This is great info and really great help. Thank you. Yeah, glad that this is helpful, and we will send more information there. So appreciate your question. Very, very helpful. And just in the span of time. So if I guess this is a great segue as well, if you are interested in different attribution influence types, we're continuing on with the campaign attribution webinar series. We have a webinar once a month. The next month is August 31st. We'll be talking about a deep dive into attribution influence types. So if you are interested, you can register. I will drop this link in the chat as well. But yeah, we will have a webinar, next month. So here's the link. I'll drop it in the chat. But otherwise, we will follow up. Thank you all for joining us. This was a great conversation. Thank you, Gavin, for joining as well. We will follow up with a recording of the webinar, those 2 cheat sheets, 1 around marketing and sales meeting alignment, and 2 around the campaign model types, rather the attribution model types. So you'll get those 3 items in your inbox so that you have that. And again, if anyone is interested in registering and you want to continue this conversation, here is the link to register. I'll drop that in the chat. But otherwise, thank you. Thank you for joining us. This is something, again, that we are very passionate about at Full Circle. And we're just grateful to be able to talk about this with marketers, just with more marketers. It's something that needs to be discussed. And so we are going to continue to provide resources for you. So if there's anything also that you'd love to see moving forward, any questions, hey, I'd love more content around X, Y, and Z, please let us know. We're here to help. Gavin, any last thoughts? I'm just going to drop this in the chat here.
I just want to tell everyone that took time to join us today for the webinar. Thank you so much for joining on. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, or if you'd like a one-on-one demo request, please let us know. We'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one and talk through more of the technical details, or answer more specific questions as it relates to what you're looking to get tracking on.
Absolutely. All right. Okay. With that, we have 5 minutes. So 5 minutes back to your day. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be chatting soon. Thanks all.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.